Good afternoon. Welcome along to NUFC Matters. And my special guest today is Liam Kennedy from the Shields Gazette. How are you?
Good. No, thanks for inviting us on, Steve. Excellent.
Great to have you on. Because the one thing we haven't really delved into is journalists, and obviously I've worked with a lot of journalists over the years, and to be honest, with the exception of maybe Lee Ryder, Ross Gregory, and now yourself, you know what I mean? I don't get a chance to interview or speak to many of the lads and give them a chance to have their say. And journalists have had a big part to play over the summer, which we'll come to. But just a little bit about yourself, Liam. Obviously, I know you work at the Shields Gazette now, and you cover the sport for them. I met you through covering local boxing. But tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into it, etc.?
To be honest, I'm probably quite a new face to Newcastle United fans in a lot of ways, but obviously I've been a Newcastle United fan since birth. I was brought up in a Newcastle United family from North Tyneside, Killarmouth's where I'm from. Obviously, I have no connection apart from going to school with Jack Colback, but that's literally about it. Also, we're both disliked by Sunderland fans as well, so that's quite interesting as well. I came into the game probably about 10 years ago. Worked down south in London and moved up to Nottingham, did a bit of time there. Went up to Scotland, made my name as a sports writer essentially up there, covering Dundee United, came into contact with some tremendous names in the Scottish game, managed to speak to Alex Ferguson and people like that. Incredible time up there. Got the opportunity to come down south, covered Sunderland for a little bit, didn't go the way things would have planned or imagined. But some people out there will know. And then moved on to Hartlepool, did a bit of local boxing, as you said, and that's where our paths crossed initially. And then got the opportunity last year to sort of delve into Newcastle a little bit with the Shields Gazette alongside my good colleague Miles Starford, who you know well as well. And me and him have been teaming up covering Newcastle with obviously the massively increased audience. To be honest, there's been all eyes on Newcastle United for the last sort of 6 months since the takeover talk really ramped up. So yeah, it's been an enjoyable experience. Cut my teeth all over the country, and I'm just happy to be home now.
Great stuff, and from my perspective, what I've enjoyed about the Shields Gazette coverage is that it seems it's a newspaper that isn't afraid to not toe the party line, if that makes sense. And I think that was very, apparent when Ross Gregory was there. You've mentioned Miles. I've always found, and this isn't a criticism, by the way, Miles has always played with a straight bat. But I always felt that with Ross, he was prepared to, have a go. And I feel as if you've taken on that baton at the Shields Gazette and you're doing it even more so. And I think it's refreshing for Newcastle fans to see a journalist do that, because we understand, especially under this regime, that you're going to be under threat of a ban if you don't say what Mike Ashley and co want you to say. But ultimately, if you want readership and you want people to believe in what you're saying and read your newspaper, then you've got to do something different. And, it is refreshing, I think, as a Newcastle fan who does read your articles, that, I do think you do a good job,
Thanks. It's good to hear that, Steve. No, I think it's important to sort of realise that first and foremost, I was a fan before I was ever a writer or a journalist. And I try to always use that as maybe a point of difference, because not all Newcastle United writers out there were fans. Obviously, I had a season ticket for 10 years, got my first season ticket when the ground was expanded in 2000. Lived all the way through that, the Robson years, all that kind of thing. I've got faint memories of the Keegan stuff. I'm only in my early 30s. I might look a little bit older, but no, I'm definitely... I write for mostly, obviously I've got that expertise, you get the insight, because you speak to people, you speak to the manager, people around the club, sources everywhere, and I try and bring those parts to the table as well as a fan perspective and write what I would have wanted to read, what I would have wanted people to ask questions of the people in power, and I kind of try to bring that to my writing, and hopefully, as you said, that reflects through when you guys out there are reading it.
Do you think it's important as a football writer that you have to support the team? Because obviously, we've seen it over the years where maybe someone's been brought into a newspaper that cover Newcastle United or Sunderland or Middlesbrough, and they haven't supported the team. And do you think it's important? Because sometimes it can come across in the writing, there's not the enthusiasm, there's not the passion.
Yeah, I don't think it's essential. I think you can not support a side, but you've got to feel something. I found when I went up to Scotland and I covered Dundee a lot, Dundee United, went away on Scotland trips, and I almost immersed myself in that life north of the border. And you start to feel something. It's never the same. You support who you support. You are where you're from. But if you feel something, I think fans respect that. And if you sort of, like I said, I immersed myself. I almost got involved a lot with the fan group, spoke to people, went to the pubs after games, went to the pubs before games when I got the opportunity, when my work was done, speak to the people, and then you kind of get more of a sense of what the area is about, what the football clubs mean to people. And I think, obviously, if you support a club, you've already got that mostly, so it helps. But I think the right type of people can take jobs and still, like I say, immerse themselves in a different life, in a different area. And as long as you buy into that ethos, buy into the ideas, buy into the culture of a football club in a city, I think anybody can cover anywhere. But it takes a certain type of person. Not that I'm sort of pointing myself out as special. I think anybody can do it, but you've got to really give a little bit of yourself to it. And I think that's probably, maybe you're going to come out, I don't know, but that's maybe where I probably fell down with the Sunderland thing. I couldn't really give a bit of myself to that. It was a way home for me, and maybe I was looking too much in the idea of wanting to come home. I've worked everywhere, and I think for me, I can't see how I would have been able to give a little bit of myself. And I think that's why this Newcastle United role, although I've only been in a year, has really suited so well, because I give more than a little bit of myself to me writing about Newcastle United, because it's in there, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It comes across. So obviously, you've only been on the Newcastle scene a short time. What was it like the first time you got across there to do a press conference? Who was it with? And were you nervous?
Yes, I was nervous. Obviously, I've done plenty before. Like I said, I've covered international football, been away with Scotland, that kind of thing. So you do come across big names. I've done Premier League clubs when they come up, and Man City were up at Dundee not all that long ago when I was up there. I'd only been there a couple of years, and that was quite a sort of pinch yourself experience in a lot of ways for a young reporter. But the first time I did Newcastle, although I had a lot of experience under my belt, was quite daunting, to be honest. It was Rafa Benitez, and Rafa Benitez is Rafa, isn't he? He is a very warm character when you get speaking to him, but almost when you haven't met him and spoken to him, you almost have him up on this pedestal because he's such a fantastic manager, won everything there is to win in football, had so many stars under his wing, and these fantastic achievements at Liverpool, Inter Milan, everywhere. So to be in there, and then obviously being a fan as well, to be speaking to the Newcastle United manager, especially when he invites you into his office, was one of those really sort of, oh, look at the walls, look. And then when you get to the pots, the little cans of Coke out and things like that, and you have the salt and pepper, and he's moving them around on the table, just all of that, it was amazing. And when I came out of there, I remember speaking to people in my family, and they were just sort of like gobsmacked that I'd had that kind of experience, knowing how much I love the club and where I came from. A little bit more about my roots, to be honest. I'd always wanted to cover Newcastle United. It had always been a dream of mine, because I remember growing up reading like Alan Oliver and Gibbo and stuff in the Chronicle, and I remember saying to me, Grandma, I must have only been sort of 7 or 8 years old, and said, you know what, I go to the match, Grandma, but I want to get paid. I want to get paid to go to the match. These lads have got the perfect job. Not did I suspect it would ever come to pass, but so for somebody who comes from those roots to then be sitting in the office with a manager, it's just the type of thing fans dream of. And it was a nervy experience, but amazing company, absolutely amazing. You've been in the company of Rafa yourself.
Yeah,
an incredible man, and his passion for the game, and passion for the area when he was here, it just really exuded from him. It was incredible, and it was such an enjoyable experience. It was even more heartbreaking when he left because of that, because you realise how good the man was, what work went on, the plan behind the scenes that he couldn't quite implement. And seeing all that as a fan it was even harder in some ways when he did depart. But yeah, Steve Bruce is excellent as well. He's a nice man. And I know that when he gets you so far, it's not a managerial trait that'll win you any medals or keep you in divisions or get you up the table, but he is genuinely a nice fella. And I think it's okay to say that. I think we'll probably come on to this. It's very, Newcastle fans are very black and white. And I get that. I get you nail the colours to the mast. But sometimes there's a grey area. And I think it's okay to say somebody's a nice bloke and also not really rate his managerial skills in some senses. It's okay to be critical and positive in the same sense. And I think there's been a bit of that on social media recently. And that's one thing that sort of stuck in my throat a little bit. It doesn't have to be black and white. We're all black and white, but it doesn't have to be that way.
What's a typical match day for a reporter then, covering Newcastle United? I mean, obviously for us, we all go out, we'll meet whoever we're going to meet pre-match, go for a couple of drinks, head up to the ground and then, shout our heads off and come out happy or sad and we'll go for another couple of pints and go home. But what's a standard day for a journalist on the Newcastle beat?
Well, I'll just stop you there. I do still meet my dad for a few pints in the Percy after, so...
Put the world to rights.
Yeah, you have to. Before the game, you'll sort of get there maybe 3 hours before the game, set yourself up. You do get the little pre-match meal as well, which is always nice. One of the little perks of the job. And then it's kind of like a slow build-up. Everybody's arriving at their different times. Everybody's kind of getting themselves prepped for it, and then it's all just kind of geared towards that 2 o'clock on a regular day, where the team news comes, and then it's all guns blazing from then on in. So the lull, it's kind of a lull before the storm for that, from maybe 12 o'clock onwards. 2 o'clock comes around, it's all guns blazing, and then you kick off into the game. And sometimes it might not seem it to some people out there when you're writing it, but actually watching the game and analysing it, writing about it, and the pressures that we have at times on hitting certain targets, doing certain things. You'll be doing player ratings at the same time. You'll be writing an analysis, and you'll be sort of spinning so many plates. It can actually see some things sometimes do pass you by in games, which is the real shame. And I do enjoy watching Newcastle United. Some fan writers out there who cover Newcastle United, but are fans as well, often say that they don't get the same enjoyment out of watching the team outside of that. It's never really been from me, so I'll quite happily go and sit next to my dad in the Gallagher when we get the opportunity, if I wasn't working on it any given Saturday.
Is it difficult when Newcastle score not to jump up and down in the press box?
Yeah, it's actually quite a civilised press box. From my experiences of places elsewhere, I covered Nottingham Forest for a bit when I was down in Nottingham, and they were quite partisan. So when goals went in and they were crucial, you would see the odd person jump up and shout and bawl. And I think in Scotland that was even more so. I covered a couple of Dundee United derbies. And the guy who I was working with, I was doing Dundee, he was doing Dundee United. This is for the Dundee Evening Telegraph. He was actually a Dundee fan, even though he covered Dundee United. And I remember in a derby in Scotland, they call it the Doon Derby. It was where Dundee relegated Dundee United. And I remember him jumping up and shouting and celebrating. I'll not name him in case anybody in Scotland up there knows who I'm on about when he gets some stick. But yeah, so it is hard. It is hard. And I can only imagine what it would feel like, say, if Newcastle got to Wembley, I was there to cover it, and we scored a goal that won a cup. In my head, I just imagine myself leaving the press box and running around to where the fans are and sort of give me dad a hug, probably. Something like that if we eventually did win something. But no, you have to sort of try and be reserved in some senses. But I can't imagine what I'd feel like if we scored at Wembley in a cup final or something like that. I'd probably be jumping all over the place.
The impression fans get these days that the players aren't as approachable as they probably were 20 years ago. You mentioned the entertainers at the start of the show, and obviously my company, Newcastle Legends, we do a lot of, talking dinners and events with, the likes of Les Ferdinand, Alan Shearer, Lee Clark, you name it, Rob Lee. But in 20 years' time, I can't really see us doing talk-ins with, the current crop of players, for example. Now, you get a chance to interview some of these players, after a game. Who's the most approachable? Which players do you enjoy interviewing the most?
There's some that don't particularly like getting interviewed, and often when we're back in normal circumstances would swerve coming through the mix zone. I'll not name those names, but fans can probably guess the type of characters in the team who don't like being interviewed.
Yeah.
But there are plenty. I find Jamal Lascelles is a stand-up character, and I genuinely think that comes across in his game. He makes the odd mistake and he's not perfect, but you can see that he's an honest straightforward individual, and you can see why someone like Benitez pinned his hopes on him being his skipper, because he's not perfect and he's probably not international class as some people might think, but in terms of the man and the character, he's sort of all in the right direction, all in the right place, and he's an excellent person to speak to because he gives you honest, straight answers whenever you need them, and I do quite enjoy speaking to Jamal.
Dealing with Newcastle United can it be easy? And as you say, you're fairly new to the beat, and it seems over the last 13 years under Mike Ashley, there's been peaks and troughs of communication. Sometimes there's been a wall of silence. Other times there's been, communication, but only via the manager who was in place. Thinking of Alan Pardew. Sometimes it's all come through, the press officer at the club, and I know the present press officer has been, certainly somebody who's had to, pass on messages from above. And what's the state of play, prior to the takeover talk? How has it been for your first year? Have you found it easy to communicate with the club, and have they been good at getting back to you?
They're approachable, so you can get them.
Yeah,
that's not a problem. But getting answers from them is a totally different thing altogether. But I find that almost I would describe them as a closed book. So you could pick that book up, but prizing it open is just totally impossible. And I would be interested to see how things played out under a new regime, because it'd be interesting to know how much of that shackling comes from above. I do tend to think, having worked with lots of press officers before and knowing the game, that you can do a little bit more. I think they could do a little bit more. Briefing off the record, that kind of thing, isn't always a bad thing. Rafa Benitez was the absolute magician at that kind of thing. He would set the agendas in his off-the-record briefings. So you knew, no matter what he said on the record, you knew the real story, and it makes it much easier to write. Plus, he gets you to say what he wants you to say almost. So I do think shaping the narrative is something that the press office at Newcastle United could do a lot more of. They did do that when I first arrived in the area. Less so now. I would say much less so. Now, like I say, it could be that they're clamped up from above, which I suggest is probably mostly it. But it'd be nice to see how they broke those shackles free under a new regime, which, fingers crossed, shouldn't be too far away.
We've mentioned a little bit about social media. Is that something that helps your job, or is it something that hinders your job? Because, let's take the recent run of form that Newcastle have had since Project Restart. Newcastle have done well. They managed to secure the place in the Premier League. They go to Man City last night. Obviously, they had players who essentially were missing through injury. Some will have been rested because they played, every game since Project Restart. They come up against a Man City team who are essentially hurting because they haven't won the Premier League. They've just beaten Liverpool 4-0. They then go and beat Newcastle, a below par, and a Newcastle missing a few players, shall we say, 5-0, and Twitter goes into meltdown. And we'd had a bit of a Bruce Love in on Twitter, especially for the last couple of weeks, people saying that he should be given a chance, etc. And then last night it was back to Bruce out. And so what does that make your job easier? Does it make it harder? Do you feel that you have to play it to the audience sometimes, or do you feel that you write what you see and that's it?
No, I tend to stick to write what I see, because then you can speak honestly and it comes from the heart, and then you mean it and you can stand by your opinions. There's far too many people out there make a living out of just saying the opposite to what everybody wants to hear, or pandering to the audience, and they've made good careers out of it. There's so many high profile examples out there. I'll not go through names. But no, I think you've got to write from the heart. The nuts and bolts of the job, if you're going to say, is social media a good thing or a bad thing? If you were to roll the clock back 30 years and social media didn't exist, this job was a lot easier than it was before. Because if you got a story, an exclusive tended to be an exclusive. There wasn't the need to have to push something out immediately. Timescales were different. You could wait on something and leave it for the paper the next day, or write it for even Saturday or Sunday's paper, or whatever you may want to do. Social media changed all that, because it almost... the thirst for information became immediate. Everybody wanted everything now, and the industry went along with that. And that's something that writers had to slowly adapt to. It wasn't easy. I first came in the industry when it wasn't really a massive thing. It was a thing, but it wasn't as big as it is now, obviously. So I do think it shapes the coverage in a lot of ways. Do I think it's a good thing in terms of people getting up and down. No, I think it's quite dangerous, to be honest. In a lot of ways, I find if you were speaking to somebody in the street and they were having, if it was your next door neighbour, for example, and they were having mood swings like certain people do on Twitter, you would start worrying. You'd maybe ring somebody and say, "How would you have a word with him?" Because you'd start. It's 1 minute people are up there, and then the next minute they're down there. I just think people need to just calm a little bit, and social media is a really bad place for that because it allows people to just vent whatever they may feel at that moment in time. But then it's printed on there, it's stuck, it's there unless you delete it, and people see that, and that impacts on other people as well. So it's kind of like an echo chamber for these people who rant off, and they'll be up there with Bruce saying, "Oh, he's the best thing since sliced bread after Bournemouth," and then last night he's the worst thing we've ever had. And really, normal thinking people, I'm not criticising people, but sort of normal-minded people will just say, "Well, it's somewhere in between. He's not the worst manager we've ever had, but he's also far from the best we've ever had, and he's probably not the man to take it forward, really, if the club's going to be invested in." So I think most normal people can think that, but social media allows people to have that voice. It almost creates a false echo chamber, because I don't believe everybody is reflective of, say, the NUFC hashtag. I just don't genuinely think that. I think when you speak to people in the street, in the pubs, in the bars, as we'll all be finding out very soon as we're getting out and about more, I don't think people feel like that. I think people are frustrated and angry, particularly with the Premier League and the takeover. People want a decision because it's had a lot of people hanging by a thread, and I understand that totally. Because even as a writer, like I say, I'm a fan as well. I've felt on tenterhooks constantly, thinking, "Is it happening? Is it not?" I believe it's happening, but then there's a doubt, and that's so difficult. Like in my position, you have insight, you speak to people, so that almost brings you. It makes you level-headed in some ways. It makes it easier to adapt to these changes and situations and fluctuations and moods. But I find myself, I'll have my next door neighbour give us a text. I have like my friends, my family. What's going on? What about this latest thing? What's Miguel Delaney saying? What does he mean? You know what I mean? It's like a constant thread of people just not knowing what the hell's going on, and it's been quite difficult mentally for people. So social media has its damaging elements. I also believe it's a positive thing in a lot of ways, because it allows us to do this kind of thing. It allows us to sort of communicate more, and I quite like speaking to fans. If people come at me with an opinion or whatever and I don't agree, I quite like talking back to them, and we'll have what say, and then that'll be it, and we'll have a laugh about it. And I think people respect that as well. People prefer you to sort of not be on your high horse, to be able to come down to their level and have a chat. And I think social media can be a force for good in that sense, but it's got to be moderated a little bit more. I think by the governing bodies, and I think everyone can moderate themselves a little bit more. It doesn't harm you from time to time just to say, "You know what, I'm off tomorrow. I might just switch my phone off, and that's fine. I'm not gonna
ask you about that. You say moderate, and that brings me to the troll situation. And have you had your experiences of that? I mean, your head's above the parapet as a Newcastle fan in a professional position. Mine is because of my opinions over the years. I get my fair share of abuse. I choose to respond to some, I block others. But how have you dealt with the kind of personal abuse I would imagine you've probably had for having an opinion?
Yeah. Years ago, I used to have this sort of idea that, I'm not blocking anybody because that's almost what they want you to do when they're good and that kind of thing. But the older I'm getting and the more experience, I'm just thinking it's not worth the hassle. I just block them. If somebody's going to go on and take their time of day out of that, I'm not going to waste my time of day on them. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to step away sometimes and just say, "You know what? I wouldn't accept that if I was walking through the shop and somebody said that to me. So I'm not going to accept it when I'm sitting in my house watching the telly, my wife and kids." You know what I mean? So that's one of the real negative elements of it. This troll idea, because people just say things they wouldn't walk up to you in the street and say the same thing. I actually had experience of that when I was covering Hartlepool not that long ago. That there was this guy who was on and on and on and on constantly, effing this abuse, getting really personal about family and that kind of thing. And I seen him walking in the street, and he just sort of looked at us, and I said, "Well, you're not saying anything now." And then he got his brother and his family, and they were waiting outside the ground for us and all that kind of thing. And I just think, like, it was lucky I was with a couple of colleagues there, Nick Laughlin, who works for the Northern Echo, and a few others. And he just says, Liam, do you want, what should we do? Should we go out? And I says, just let them cool off. They'll be gone and back in the pub before anything's happened, because it's not worth it. It's a bit of opinion on football, you know what I mean? It's not life or death. It might feel like it sometimes, but people just need to chill out. But I've had experiences of that. I've had experiences of when I was covering Sunderland and people sort of found out that I was a Newcastle United fan. I had death threats. I had people calling me family, worse than rubbish. People abused my wife. I had all sorts of problems. And the issue that stuck in my throat with that was, so I took that abuse that was particularly through Twitter, some through Facebook, and reported it to the relevant bodies. I just got these blanket responses back. These were death threats. And I'm not sure now, because I'll be honest, it's been quite kind to me in recent times.
Yeah.
But this was maybe 5-6 years ago. I got death threats. I sent them to Twitter in particular, and they just gave blanket responses back saying, "Oh, we do not see this as doesn't break the rules," kind of thing. Now, if people are sending death threats and that doesn't break the rules, there's something wrong with the system. There should be a system whereby blocking of accounts happens from the top. I think it does a little bit more now. You probably know more than me, Steve, because you do get your fair share. But back then, that was one thing that really made me take a step back. It did take me a year or two to really find my voice again on social media, because things like that do knock you. And I think it's okay to say that as well. And people out there think you're made of steel, but you're not. You're just a human being. And if people are constantly criticising you, it hurts. It does hurt. If you're sitting in, like I say, you're sitting in your front room, and because of the power of social media, it's on your phone, you're hearing click, click, click constantly, and then you're reading it, and you're sitting there thinking, what have I done? You know what I mean? I've just finished my tea. I'm sitting watching the news on the telly, and I'm getting abuse from people I've never seen in my life. It can be damaging, and I think, like you say, you get your fair share, and it's something that probably, if you go up through the levels in the governing bodies, to your Twitters, your Facebooks, Instagrams, whatever it may be, people are getting stick. YouTube, there should be more regulation. It shouldn't be the open market. I don't think it would take a lot of money. You see the profits that these big, huge companies are making. It wouldn't take a lot to sort of keep your users happy, you know what I mean? And just regulate it for more normal thinking people, and just block these trolls out of people's lives, because it doesn't do anybody any favours.
Yeah, sadly, a lot of these people who get, blocked or accounts taken down just simply set up a new email and they're back under a different guise. I'm not going to give one guy in particular a mention, but I've mentioned him before on podcasts, and it's just sad to see. And he trolls me relentlessly, and tries to get a bite. A lot of it's supposed to be in good humor, but then you see other people jumping on it, and ultimately that kind of person is that is their life. That they just seem to be intent on causing misery and trying to create mental issues for people. And I'm used to it, but there's a lot of people who get attacked by this particular person who I know some who've actually come off social media and who've got mental issues. So I've always said that what should happen with these people is that if you have an account which is knocked back, people know what IP addresses are. These companies are very clever nowadays. Technology is very clever. It's so advanced. If your IP address is linked with an account which is being abusing and trolling people, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, then your IP address should be banned from the internet. That would stop you. That would stop you full stop. Whether it ever happens, who knows? But I'm pleased. I'm pleased that from your perspective, things have quietened down. Obviously, coming to Newcastle and covering the Newcastle beat is obviously going to help. Let's look at the football now. And obviously, we mentioned the Man City defeat, but look, prior to that, Project Restart, we were all a little bit concerned because Newcastle were still hovering above the relegation zone, as they have, constantly under the Ashley regime. But Newcastle came back with, fit, well, and they did what they had to do to stay up.
Yeah, I think the break was a good thing for them, to be honest. You always worry that when a team's starting to hit form, and Steve Bruce changed the formation prior to the lockdown, and things just started to move in the right direction. You do worry that they'll come back and not hit those straps again, and they did straight away. As soon as they came back, they looked right at it. 2 or 3 of the players, the break looked to have done them the world of good. I think Danny Rose is probably one of them for me. I think the loan players might well come onto it. I'd be hard pushed to sign any of them, but if I was going to sign any of them on current performances, I think Danny Rose is on an upward trajectory. I think he looked like a player prior to lockdown that didn't have any games under his belt, and you could tell. And I kind of put that down to maybe attitude. I wonder, because you do worry about Danny Rose. He's a very vocal character.
Yeah.
And there were stories coming out of Tottenham that the manager there wasn't all that happy with his application and things like that. And you sort of put it down there, you think, oh, well, he's only come here just to keep ticking over, hasn't he? But no, I think since Project Restart started up, I think he's been one player that's really stepped up levels. And I thought last night, in a very, very poor performance, we did actually just start to see the little shoots of what he used to do at Spurs in the really good Spurs sides under Pochettino, where he was up against them last night. You had Kyle Walker on one side, Danny Rose on the other, where they would burst forward and cause problems for teams left, right and centre. And I thought even at times when we were under the cosh yesterday, he did try and get forward and got involved in attacks. And I like to see that because he's a solid enough defender. He's strong, he's quick. He's got a lot of things going for him. And he's probably the only one I would look at and say, maybe I would sign him. The other two, we just haven't seen enough of Lazaro. Really, even last night in his game, he was very poor going backwards. But going forward, there were little flashes where he can beat a man and that kind of thing. And there is something there. Whether you would splash out 20 million plus on him this summer on what we've already seen is another thing altogether, given that if things remain as they are and the Premier League don't make a decision, that money will be very, very tight on Tyneside. Because if fans out there think last summer was a bit of a worry, I could only imagine if the takeaway isn't ratified by the current transfer window closing, I think this summer will be even more of a worry, to be honest, because if Mike Ashley didn't care before, which we all know he didn't, he cares even less now because he's written that football club off as not his anymore, so he wants rid. So I think there are concerns for the summer. I have genuine concerns because I remember last summer, if you'd have said to me that Newcastle would be X amount of points clear of the relegation zone, with 5 games to play as it was previous to yesterday, then I would have snapped your hand off and I probably would have took your arm with it. You know what I mean? It was if that was on the day that Steve Bruce got the job or the day that Rafa Benitez left, because I thought we'd be in big trouble this season. I genuinely did, and the bookmakers did as well. A lot of them had were favourites. I tracked that quite regular, and I think all the way through September, October, Steve Bruce was the favourite for the sack. Ahead of anybody, and you'll barely find odds on that now because he's so far up the table and away from those spots. But I think all in all, after Project Restart, Bruce has done a good job, and I think that's okay to say that as well because there've been decent performances in there. But the thing I always come back to is, I've said this all the way through Mike Ashley's time at Newcastle United, it always seems if there's any success, it always seems like by accident rather than design. And I kind of get the feeling under Benitez that changed because you knew everything was by design. He set that club up to play exactly where he wanted to. Everything that happened, it was like a big machine and it was rolling along. Whereas now, again, under Bruce, you kind of get the sense that I might be being a little unfair to him because he's not the worst coach in the world, but it is by any success that we have, such as Bournemouth last week, almost does feel like accident rather than design, because in 2 games he's had 2 shots at Manchester City to set a team up to cause them some kind of issues, and it's been an abject surrender essentially in both games, and that doesn't really bode well for the future for me.
There's always going to be comparisons between Rafa Benitez and Steve Bruce. I've never known this, at all in, all the years that I've supported Newcastle, going back in, to 83, 84, where a manager's left, another manager's come in, and there's been a constant comparison all the way through the season. I don't know why that is. Media obviously feel that they're getting a lot out of it, and they're getting a lot of clicks and a lot of, a lot of interest in this comparison. Sky are doing it. Every commentator's doing it. I've always said you can compare them at the end of the season. League position will tell you exactly who was the best, who was better. But you can always say as well that, Steve Bruce didn't spend the money in the summer, but Newcastle United did. and the amount of money that was spent in the summer, in particular on one man who, I've been very critical of all season, Joe Linton, was more than Rafa Benitez probably got to spend, in the time that he was at the football club. So with that, Joe Linton, what is your impartial journalistic view on our current number 9?
I think he's had a very poor season. If you look at his goals, you look at his contributions, he's been poor. And you look at the money paid, he doesn't look like a £15 million striker, never mind a £40 million one. And that's being brutally honest. But I also think it's fair to say that there have been improvements. I do genuinely think in the last couple of games, we didn't see it last night, that was a bit of a one-off performance. As Andy Carroll sort of had the same against Man City the last time out, where it was just an isolated job. He had no support. That's not a fair reflection on the player. But I do think there have been signs with Joe Linton that he's taken on board the role. He's understanding the game. I think he's come back from lockdown a little bit more physical. I think he stands up to the challenges of centre-halves a bit better. He's always been a big lad, but when he first came in, you could question whether he was physical at all, because remember he took a knock a couple of times and then he was calling straight away, and that was the end of him. And I think he's sort of bulked up a little bit in terms of physicality, stronger, and I think he holds the ball up a little bit better and he's operating in better areas. But we've got to say and be honest, it's coming from a relatively low base, because he was very poor. It was difficult at times, particularly over Christmas, to work out how anybody would see anything in a footballer. I couldn't work out what he was meant to be. He was not mobile enough to play out wide, not strong enough, and didn't do the job of a number 9. Wasn't a 10 because he wanted to turn and have space to run into, which you don't tend to get in that position in this country. He just looked so ill-suited to the English game, and ill-suited to any game, to be honest. You wondered how he'd scored any goals at all in Germany, even though he hadn't scored a lot of goals there either. You know what I mean? I don't think that's particularly his forte, because his finishing isn't great either. But I do think it's fair to say there have been improvements, and he is going in the right direction. But he's got a long, long, long way to go to really sort of wear that shirt with pride, with that number on the back, and justify any of the money that Newcastle United paid for him. Although, I have said this on Twitter and I stand by it, ultimately the money means nothing now. He's our player. So whether he cost £1 or 40 million, we've just got to hope to see improvements from him and get the best of him that we can get out of him, because at the end of the day, I'd be complaining if it was my money, but it's not my money. So, well, it is our money, you know what I mean? We put the money in there to a sense, but at the end of the day, it's Mike Ashley's cash cow, isn't it? So it's his spends, and we'll deal with that when it comes to selling him.
We're critical of the recruitment department and Steve Nixon in particular for bringing us Joe Linton, but he deserves a big pat on the back and a round of applause, and all the plaudits for bringing St Maximin to the club for the price that he did.
Yeah, I agree. They've made a real thing of this in Ashley's time, haven't they? Sort of picking out potentially people they see as damaged goods in some way, shape or form. They did it with Ben Arthur. They've done it with others. Off the top of my head, can't think of many. They've done it with plenty of players in recent times. Even Benitez is another one they've tried to look at and think, right, we'll get him in. He's damaged goods. Can we get something out of him and sell him on probably in the future? That's always the idea. St Maximin's are one of those. Patrick Vieira was very critical of his attitude, and I think the change has been really good for him. Injuries hampered him a lot at the start, and now we're really starting to see the real Alan St Maximin. He's brave, he's strong, he's quick. He's an absolute nightmare for defenders. How do you defend against him? Because you show him outside, he'll beat you for pace, he'll cut inside, smash a ball in the top corner. He's just got a special talent. And you can see potentially why Vieira didn't like him, because I think he's the type of character who got bored. I think he got bored with the challenge of League One, and he couldn't get himself up for it. And I think he's come to Newcastle, the Premier League. He's wanted to showcase his talents, and it's a perfect opportunity for him, particularly now he's injury free.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Definitely a great bit of business, and hopefully when the takeover goes through, the first thing to do is offer him a new contract, because he's certainly a fan's favourite. Right, we've avoided it so far. We've skirted around it. We've talked a little bit about it. The dreaded T word, takeover. God, I mean, if there's one thing you didn't want to drag through lockdown, it was this. especially with Newcastle fans sitting at home, you know, scrolling through Twitter, scrolling through the Shields Gazette website, looking for some shred of hope. You know, what's your view on it? What's your take on it? I know we've spoken about this. You know, we've met up, we've had a pint, we've had coffee, and you know, chatted about this over the, prior to lockdown. But what's your views on how it's all been maybe handled, I suppose, by the Premier League, and why do you think it's taken so long?
I think I wrote a column on it a couple of weeks ago, and I believe it's all about money. It's purely about money, this. I think anybody who thinks that the English Premier League have suddenly grown a moral compass is so far wrong. They haven't got a moral compass, and don't for 1 second believe that they're going to take a stance on Hatis Cengiz, Jamal Khashoggi, or human rights abuses, especially not when the British government walk hand in hand. They're a primary trade partner, Saudi Arabia. So don't for 1 second believe the Premier League are going to take a stance which flies in the face of everything that this country is pushing towards when they're wanting the investment from Saudi Arabia. So I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's all purely about self-interest and money. The Premier League want to get the most money they can for their members. And I do think there is benefit in that. There is just the right reason for them doing that. But they could have handled this so much better. There, like I've said earlier, there's people hanging on tenterhooks here. People are literally, their mental health's being affected day by day because of this, having to sort of feel around for anything, even like semantics in sentences. People are taking, somebody might have said something totally normal, and people are picking bits out and taking context away from it, and just getting false hope out of things. I do think the Premier League could have treated us like adults in a lot of ways. I think they've been hiding. I think they say it's confidential. Of course it's confidential, and there aren't really leaks coming from the Premier League when you speak to them. I also do think, and I don't want to be critical of potential new owners coming in, but I think, could they have said something? I think somebody could have said something. And I do believe if Mike Ashley cared about the football club that he was selling and the fans, he would have said something by now. It doesn't have to be on the record, but it could have come out and could have leaked. I do feel that somebody could have said something, because I think it's had a real detrimental effect on the mental health of Tyneside. Now, I've mentioned that on Twitter before, and I've had people say, well, really, you want to get a grip of yourself if this is what your mental health is hinging on. But people don't get a grasp on how much this football club means to people in this area. It is some people's lives. I know lads who've never missed games since the 80s, never missed a home and away game since the 80s. It's killing them. They're texting me saying, oh, can I have a program? Are they doing programs? This was before we found out it was all digital. Can I have a program? Because I've never missed a program since the 80s. You know, I've always bought one, and I've always went to every game. That's people's lives. People build their life around that. They work Monday to Friday so they can go to a game, so they can pay that 200 quid it'll cost them to go to Bournemouth on a Wednesday or whatever. You know what I mean? That's exactly what people's lives are. And that's why Newcastle United is so unique, and that's why I love it so much, because it does mean so much. It's not the type of club that people pick up and put down. I always remember when Jermaine Jenas left, and he talked about being a goldfish bowl. I think Alexander Mitrovic said it very recently, because you can go to London, you can sign for Tottenham, you can sign for Fulham, and you can walk down the street and nobody will know who you are most of the time. You couldn't walk down the Thumland Street, Grey Street, Dean Street, wherever, the Quayside. You couldn't walk down there and somebody not know who you are, because even if one person doesn't, there'll be somebody nudging the next to them saying, oh, look, there's such and such, or there's what. And I love that about Newcastle. You get that yourself. You get it. There is a notoriety that comes with it. There's a standing and a responsibility, and I really enjoy that, to be honest. I think it's a nice place to be. It's been difficult reporting on the takeover, because some things you don't want to give people false hope, and you have to balance it with a job. That some things you have to report on, which sometimes you think, I wish I wasn't having to do that or say that, but that's part and parcel of the job. And I've always tried to be honest and fair and reflect my opinions and those of people who I've been speaking to quite fairly. And I still stand by it. You've been a very confident an advocate of positivity constantly through this, and I stand by you on that one. I do believe we've come so far down the line now that this will happen. I think if it wasn't going to happen, I think we would have known by now. And I think purely the Premier League are looking after their own members and wanting to squeeze as much money as possible out of this deal as they can. And I think Richard Masters has probably in some ways seen that he could be held up as a hero by the Premier League. Let's remember, he wasn't a first, second or third choice to become the chief there at the Premier League. There was 2 people turned the job down before they even got to him. So I think he could, if he comes out with this positively, it is because he manages to fix a years-long problem of piracy in Saudi Arabia. Now I've got family who live and work out in Saudi Arabia at the moment. I've been speaking to them about the situation. There's so much positivity coming out of that. You'll see it on social media. You've been interacting with people from over there. There's a whole nation over there just dying to really sort of delve into Newcastle United. They really are. He works with people day in, day out, and they're getting Newcastle tops. They're excited. They can't believe that their country's buying into the English Premier League, something that they have watched illegally through BLQ, and then very recently still illegally through beIN Sports. beIN Sports, I think there's like a misconception that the frequency, for example, is blocked in Saudi Arabia. It genuinely isn't. For example, I know people over there who've got beIN Sport boxes, pay subscriptions. The only thing is, you're not really allowed to do it. It is illegal, but they're not really they don't clamp down on it because they know themselves that they can't provide that service. I was told about the BLQ boxes that a lot of people bought them and they just weren't very good, to be honest. I think that was the sense. And a lot of people then binned them and went back to the beIN Sports, which apparently you can get for around £250 a year over there. I don't want to get too technical, it might be boring people out there, but I think there's been a misconception with that it's banned. It isn't banned. People are still watching Premier League football and the thirst for it's there, and the passion for Newcastle United is starting to grow as well. So I think it's quite exciting. It might not feel it, and I think everybody's got a sense of takeover fatigue, but we're on the verge of something very, very exciting here. This could be the new dawn that we've been crying out for so long. We've all been through games like that last night. It was nothing new. It was something we've experienced time and time and time again. We even experienced it before, Mike Ashley, at times as well. Let's not sort of repaint history. We did. We were rubbish at times before that, but at least you knew under the previous regime that everybody was kind of pushing in the right direction. They had their faults, but everybody was kind of pushing in the right direction. With this guy, he's never been going in the same direction as us. It's always been about him. I don't know why he did it in the first place. I've got no understanding on why he would want to buy a football club. Obviously, I know he just wanted to push Sports Direct everywhere, but I don't think he really got what it meant to own a football club, especially not Newcastle United. He should have went and bought a club in London where he could have probably just floated along like this and nobody would have bothered. But there's the whole of the North East are fighting against him, and the passion and the belief and the feeling. It's just been a hope vacuum, and you feel that, everyone else out there will feel that, and fingers crossed we can really get excited about something, and everyone just needs to just to hang on a little bit, be patient. It's hard, it is hard, I get it, but we'll get there. We've always known that we're bigger and better than this. We've always been bigger and better than this, and everyone with black and white in their heart knows that as well, and our time will come. I always stand by that.
Has the negativity surprised you from the likes of Miguel Delaney, who you mentioned earlier, and Richard Keys, obviously? Or, it's surprising that they've dragged, the geopolitical landscape into it, because it's about sport to us. It's about football. It's about our football club, isn't it? And they seem to have had another agenda.
There's two very different things on this. Newcastle United fans should not be held responsible for the actions of their owners. We're not responsible for Mike Ashley paying 0 hours contracts. We're not responsible for Sports Direct selling a pair of trainers for X amount of money and blowing all the other people out the market as they did with football shirts, for example, with JJB and all these kind of things. Football fans are not responsible for that, nor are they responsible for a regime who might be going to buy them. That doesn't mean they have to be blind to it. There are issues. But I'm at the moment speaking to a lot of people in Saudi Arabia and just trying to get that sense of what their feeling is and what their feeling towards their own regime is. And speaking to a lot of younger people in the area, these are people who've reached out to me, seeing the things that I've written, seeing the things I've been talking about, and wanting to give a little bit more of a positive slant on things. And now I'm not saying everything is right. It isn't. And there's a lot of things that fly in the face of our culture which go on over there. But it's about football to us. It's about football to you and me. I want to see Newcastle United do well. I want to see the best Newcastle United can be. I want them to have a go last night. I want to see them try to sign the best players they possibly can. I want to see them edge up the table. I want to see them win a cup in my lifetime. I'm still young, relatively. I want to see them. I want to see my dad. My dad wants to see them win a cup. He's in his late 50s now, and obviously they won the first cup when he was 6, but he can't remember. So you know what I mean. I want to see for him. He was all the way through the 70s, all the way through the 80s. He was there. He's still got his season ticket in the Gallagher today. You wouldn't miss it for the world. For people like that, for people like you, for people like loads of people listening out there, I want to see us do well. And whoever buys it, we shouldn't be blind to their faults. But we've not been blind to Mike Ashley's faults, and it's not our responsibility to address them. For people who've been saying Newcastle United fans should try and block this for that reason, it's not on our shoulders. It really is not on our shoulders. And that, like I said, that doesn't mean we have to be blind to it. But by the same token, we just want a football team that wins. And that's okay. It's okay to say that. It's not like it became a swear word for a few weeks for any Newcastle United fans sort of trying to be positive about things. Like you've taken some stick from people left, right and centre. And the geopolitics, it's not our game. Like we're not politicians. We're not experts in that field. I'm not. I've tried to research myself and do as much as possible to try and keep people informed out there about the situation. But at the end of the day, it's not our battle. Our battle is our football club, and whoever buys it. That doesn't mean it can be anybody. Which the Premier League owners and directors test, although they want to beef it up a little bit, it weeds out the wheat from the chaff. So if you don't pass that, then you shouldn't really own a football club. And I think on the current standing and the way I read the owners and directors test and the noises I've heard, I don't believe the owners of Newcastle United are in any way connected to the human rights abuses, in any way connected to the piracy. And I think that's enough of a barrier for me to feel very, very happy the day that Mike Ashley leaves and new owners, be it PIF, PCP, and the Rubens walk in the door. So
when they come in, what is the first thing you would like to see them do?
Where'd you start, Steve?
I know.
It's been a long time since the football club's been properly invested in and treated like a proper football club. Obviously, a lot of people go on about the training ground, and I think when you look at, for example, Man City, we'll talk about them from last night. Obviously, they've had big investment a while back. They take footballers to their training ground. They're not driving along, stopping in the traffic lights at Benton, and then driving in past the Northumberland FA with a few, somebody's back garden down the left-hand side and a couple of signs on the right-hand side. They're driving into a purpose-built complex. I even look at players, for example, they might not be the best players, but Lazaro signs from Inter Milan. You just look at his signing pictures when he signed for Inter Milan in the summer, and you look at him in Newcastle. It's like he's going from the Premier League to the bottom division. You know what I mean? It really is. There's no professional element to it, and I think that's Mike Ashley. He runs his businesses the way he runs his football club. I think they're very. I don't want to be too critical, but it's cheap and nasty tap, most of it, isn't it? And you see that in the club shop. It's not my club shop anymore. We used to go to the Metro Centre. We used to go to. I remember the one at the entrance to Eldon Square. I used to go up the stairs, and it was only a little shop, but it was a Newcastle United shop, and you knew it was Newcastle United. This, like, you walk in at the ground, and it's Sports Direct. And I've not bought anything there for a long time. I don't intend on buying anything there for a long while yet. It's a shame. My son, he got one of his first Newcastle strips, but I just wouldn't buy it. And I know that's really sad to say, but I let other people buy because I don't want to line his pockets. I don't want to continue to line that man. Yeah, I just don't. I don't see the point in it because I want my football club back again. I want the same club that I remember when I was young. I grew up in Wallsend. I was from Wallsend. We used to kick around in the fields and that there, and everybody had the goalkeeper top. Everybody had the home strip, the away strip, the caps, the bags when you went to school, but everywhere. Everybody had everything. And I'm talking about the 95, 96 season. I remember I had everything. I had both goalkeeper tops. It was a movement. It was something to be part of. You felt it. Everybody in the area was going in the right direction. You felt it was something to be excited about. There's none of that now. It's all gone. He's evaporated any sense there was for that. And I even go back. It didn't turn out the way everyone wanted, but I remember going to the Leases when Mike Lowen signed, because it was like, obviously it didn't turn out the way we wanted, but that was Newcastle United. That was us signing somebody we probably shouldn't sign. We couldn't really afford to sign, but it was having a go, and I think that's what I believe Newcastle United is. It isn't Arsenal. It isn't Liverpool. It isn't Manchester United. Those two, the last two in particular, have accelerated well beyond Newcastle United over the last 50 years, and there's nothing we can do about that now. But this is Newcastle United, and Newcastle United are a top Premier League club, top club in Europe as well. And we can be much better than what we are, and we should strive to that. Which brings us on to success. Do you say this season's been a success? Mike Ashley's Newcastle this season has been excellent. It's been an incredible success. My Newcastle United, it's just been another also-ran season where they've underperformed for the size of the club that they are.
Yeah, great stuff. Before we finish, just a couple of quick fire questions, really. Your favourite game that you've been to as a supporter?
I've got a few favourites actually, if you don't mind, because they're all for very different reasons. So it was the semi-final at Wembley, the old Wembley, and I remember bursting into tears when Rob Lee scored his header. I was only, was I 11? 10 or 11 or something like that. And just the emotion of the day, I remember I was driven down by my dad. I was devastated after it, but that pure emotion was something else for me. I remember he took us down that day, and I was there with his mate who he sits with, and all he talked about was, my dad was saying, well, I was here in 70, I was here in 74, I was here in 76, all this kind of thing. I've never seen him score this and all this kind of thing. So to me, when we scored, I just could not believe Newcastle United had scored at Wembley, having not done so the 2 years previous. In 96, was 96, wasn't it? The the Charity Shield, all that kind of thing hadn't scored. So to me, that was emotion-wise, I've barely ever felt anything like that.
Yeah.
Recent times, the championship winning day was something else. That was really, really incredible. Just the way that all played out with Brighton conceding later on. Jack Grealish scored, and just seeing the players, we were up close and were feeling it, and just seeing them celebrate, all that kind of was just incredible. I go back as well to an FA Cup game when I was just a season ticket holder as well. And can you remember when Patrick Kluivert scored a header at Chelsea?
Yes.
Beat Mourinho's Chelsea. I don't think I've ever heard a noise like that. Mm-hmm. And you might argue, some people might, but that, for me, that feeling when he scored that header, it was a bit snowy. It was the game where Mourinho made 3 subs, and then I think Shearer might injured Wayne. Was it Wayne Bridge or something like that? And they ended up with 10 men. It was just one of them days. It was just something special. That lives in the memory for me. A couple of that games, obviously, there's been derbies that we've won over the years that have been fantastic, but real emotion, like hitting the heart, I would say that noise and that feeling at Wembley, even though it didn't succeed, was something else.
Favourite goal?
Shearer, Everton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hard to beat that one, really, to be honest.
The noise, when he hit it, it was like I was in the Gallagher that day. Yeah, it was just when he hit it, wow. He also scored a very, very good one where he spun Marcel Desailly. I'm not sure if it was the same season. Scored against Chelsea. Shola knocked it on, and then he spun Desailly and smashed that one in as well. That was pretty incredible. And the moment when he broke the record as well, that was just out of this world. Also, you're asking us for one. I'm giving you about 20.
Yeah.
Laurent Robert's 2 goals against Tottenham.
Yeah. Great goal.
2 absolute unbelievable goals that season. And they were both, in Casey Keller was in goal. He didn't know where to dive. He was shooting from everywhere. And those are ones that live in my memory from being young. You know, when you you see those goals and you're a young lad growing up, it's the type of thing you go back and speak to your mates about all week, isn't it? So, yeah, those are the type of goals that live long in the memory for me.
Last question, favourite player?
Big Al.
Big Al.
Gotta be.
Yeah.
I kind of get away from it. I love Peter Beardsley. I love when I was first really starting to enjoy Newcastle, which would have been just before that 95-96 season. Absolutely loved Rob Lee and Peter Beardsley were the two. Rob Lee, he couldn't have got a better midfielder for me. He just used to burst through constantly. He scored goals like a centre forward. I love Nobby Solano. Nobby Solano years later was just the cultured right foot. The way he used to always just chip that ball in from the right hand side. Incredible. But we've had so many good players over the years. So many players that get you off your feet. And I think that's why Alan St-Maximin rings so true with the Newcastle United fan base, because that's what we're used to. We've seen excellent players. Ben Arthurs, we've seen, Demba Bars even in recent years, and David Ginolas and Les Ferdinand. We've had so many good attacking footballers. We've been spoilt in some ways. Just a shame we couldn't put them all in one team together, innit?
Liam, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I hope you've enjoyed it. Great for the Newcastle fans just to get an insight into who's writing about the football team for a newspaper, and keep up the good work at the South Shields Gazette. It's a great paper, obviously place where I was born as well. South Shields, it's got a special place in my heart, and pass on my best to Miles and the rest of the guys down there. And thanks for coming on.
Cheers, Steve. Appreciate it.
Cheers.